Welcome back to the Soft Fantasy Football Podcast show. It's Calvin and Corbin.
Hey Siri, turn on my flashlight.
You could have your phone flashlight on.
Yep. I can
Wait,
see my beautiful face.
when did you get an iPhone?
I have a second phone.
Oh wow, that's an iPhone.
Yep. I got an iPhone so I could FaceTime for my other business,
Yeah, that's good.
my
Nice.
other family.
That was a good
Oh
intro right there.
man. Ooh, it's like hello.
All right, I'm gonna go into the news since August 5th. Traquan Smith groin injury. Garrett Wilson likely to return soon from his ankle injury. Dak Prescott likely not playing during preseason. I don't know why. Is he injured or they just don't want to play him in the preseason?
I reached out to him, to see like, hey, what's going on, and he's really he's in Ibiza right now. He's been partying a little too hard this summer, and he ended up just staying and being like, he took some trippy stuff and doesn't even know if he wants to play football this year.
Oh boy,
Kind of the Aaron Rodgers route.
the
So
ayahuasca route.
yeah. So he's opened up his third eye and he doesn't see football with it. So yeah, yep. Stay away from Dak Prescott in your drafts, definitely.
Okay, good to know.
I
Even though,
mean, we that can lead into Brandon Cooks is the second best receiver is the other problem. So uh, yeah,
that's
I
not
wouldn't want to
good.
play either. No,
So next is Devon A. Chain has an injury, undisclosed, day to day. Don't know what that is. That's not good. Undisclosed. Those are so stupid to me. Like it could be nothing, or it could be like he could be out with an Achilles or something.
anytime I see that, when I was playing basketball in college, the you'd have like every once in a while you'd be like, oh, this practice is gonna suck. Like coach is in a bad mood, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody inevitably would be like calf strain so they could sit out the rest, like right off the bat, first like 10 minutes of practice. They're like, oh, this one's going to be 2 hours of just cardio and nothing like fun. Oh, I think I pulled my calf. Let me go see the trainer. And then you go get it wrapped in ice and you just sit on the sideline and read your playbook. And you're like, oh, thank God I didn't have to do this practice. But then you're really not supposed to do the next practice either. So
Okay.
then you're injured. Injured.
Yeah.
Yeah, your better players will do that more often um,
Okay.
to get some rest in. Yeah,
That makes me feel better that he's not going to be hurt because he could be a their top running back if the other old guys die.
I think he's a good fit for the team too. So,
Yeah.
well, cool. So let's get into it. So to recap on the top five offenses, unless you had anything else.
No. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So for you, you've got San Francisco number one, Philly number two, Kansas City number three, Miami number four. Sorry, yeah, Miami number four, Jacksonville number five, Buffalo number six. So we're gonna get into your next four, and then for myself, I've got Philly one, Kansas City two, Minnesota three, Buffalo four, Detroit five, uh, Chargers six. So why don't you lead us off with who your seventh pick is?
Yeah. So I did look up the PFF offensive lines that
Finally,
influenced my top 10 picks along with the team's offenses besides their offensive
yep.
line. So my next one is the Baltimore Ravens is my seventh offense.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, man. Okay. So I know you looked up with their offensive line, but did you look up anybody else on that team.
Yes, they have Mark Andrews on their team.
Right.
And they have, oh
Yeah.
man, they have a rookie too. I can't remember his name, right? They
Say
got
Flowers.
Zay Flowers, who
Do you
everybody
know
thinks
who
could.
they do you know who they have listed as their starting wide receiver
No, I do not.
off the top of your head? It's Odell Beckham Jr. is
Oh,
their
yeah, yeah.
supposed number one.
And he's looking really good in practice, I've been seeing people say. So
Do you know who their listed starting running back is right now?
it's J.K. Dobbins or Gus
J.K.
Edwards.
Dobbins won't. Yeah, J.K. Dobbins won't play at the beginning of the season,
Yeah,
so it's
May-
Gus Edwards.
maybe. I don't know. He's he's undisclosed too, isn't he? J.K. Dobbins.
He's still injured from last year.
Yeah.
That guy lives in the hospital.
So they got Gus Edwards, who could be a yeah. I mean, they have Lamar Jackson as their quarterback, so running the ball with Lamar Jackson is not as important. That's another reason why I picked him is just because they have a running quarterback who has to be better than he was last year. I think just full
Oh, because he got injured.
yeah yeah, and he's healthy. Everyone else is supposed to be healthy this year. Hopefully, Odell Beckham stays healthy and has like one more good season because
That's a hopeful bunch of
he's not
statements. So
that
I
old.
have
He's 30.
I have Bal- I have Baltimore as my 15th offense.
Yeah,
So like all of those things. So they didn't get any better. Maybe Zay Flowers is like he'll be great, but every time they pick a wide receiver and they're like, "Oh, this guy is great. He's blah blah blah." He goes there, and then you don't remember any of them. But you've got like Marquise Brown, Rashad Bateman were both supposed to be these like phenomenal guys, and now you got Zay Flowers, and they don't do anything when they're on Baltimore though.
did Marquise Brown not do well on Baltimore? I thought he did do well on their team when he was on the team.
He did like wide receiver two,
Yeah, so
but
not
he's a
great.
wide receiver one for them, right? So like it, Mark Andrews, when he's healthy, captures the majority of the targets for the team, and then they just run the ball a bunch. And even though they still have a great offensive line, it got demoted two places.
Yeah,
So part of the reason I dumped them to 15 is like I don't know that they were a top 10 offense last year. They weren't. Um, and then they got worse, like all around.
well,
So
I heard that their coaches are trying to get them more into the passing game this year from last year. So
right. And have
that'll
you seen Lamar Jackson throw the ball?
he's a good quarterback if he's or he has been a very good quarterback.
Fantasy wise,
Yeah. That's what we're ranking and I think they could be a very good
that's
team to
but
target.
that's because he set records running the ball.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I'll
if
look at
you were
his
like,
past seasons.
he's not as bad, but like imagine if the Bears were like, "Hey, we're gonna work on Justin Fields passing more," and then you like zoom into the first three games of the season, and you're like, "Please don't," you know. Uh, I get it though. It's enticing because in I will say this: I did my rankings based on where am I picking people. So like Lamar Jackson is usually my fourth quarterback off the board, right? But I'm not picking up Odell Beckham Jr. even if like I have 20 picks in a draft. I'm not drafting Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
I might draft Zay Flowers in the back five of a draft, right? And then I'm definitely not drafting Devin Duvernay. And then I'm not drafting J.K. Dobbins, and I'm not drafting Gus Edwards, and I'm not drafting Melvin Gordon. And then Mark Andrews, I'm usually not paying the price for Mark Andrews.
Hmm.
He's going in the third round a lot of times. and I don't trust him enough to use that pick versus who else you can get there. Um,
Do you not trust him because of injury or because I think when if he's not injured, he's very reliable tight end.
yeah, I agree, but there's a lot of factors. Like last year, not as good, and also you have another tight end that's behind him now that is, I think, going to kind of take away from like, hey, Mark Andrews isn't going to kind of play every single snap because he's 27 years old. He's got a history of injuries, and you know it's only his sixth season, but he just he's breaking down to me. So I feel like they're going to kind of snap share and try to keep him healthy because he's important to that team.
Yeah,
And Isaiah Likely is good, so like they can trust him to go in and play snaps and stuff. Um,
his snap percentage last year was 83%.
right, while he was healthy.
Yeah,
So right, and then he gets injured. So like I'm just seeing that go down, and yeah. So anyways, I'll pick Lamar Jackson because he's going to run the ball. Even if he runs half as much, that's 600 yards on the season or whatever, and that'd still be great. Um, but outside of that, I'm not picking another person on this team.
yeah.
No,
I think
no
their
way.
wide receivers. I don't know. I think Zay Flowers could be good, and I think you could pick up their wide receivers late or even waivers, and they could end up being good wide receivers this year if Lamar's a good quarterback this year and they're healthy.
Well, you and I will be doing a lot of drafts together this year, and you can have all of them.
Yeah, I don't know if I
Yeah,
would. I don't know if I will do that though. You are right. It
yeah.
is you. It's a tough wide receiver room to
All
trust.
right, so I'm gonna go into who my seventh pick is. Which every single person in Cincinnati should be offended that neither of us have picked him yet.
Oh wow.
Um,
Yeah.
right. So, just in contrast, like offense wise, right?
Yeah.
Burrows. So part of the reason that I have them seventh now, if we would have done this a month ago, I probably would have had them like fourth. But the Joe Burrows injury is scary to me, and I think a lot hinges on if he's actually healthy or not.
Yeah.
Um, so, but when you're looking at their team, like in contrast to Baltimore, where I'm like who I'm picking, so Burrows, if he was healthy, is quarterback six for me fantasy wise, right? Which is great, but he doesn't run a lot and he does have like some bad stacks and turnovers sometimes. So that really crushes like on your fantasy stuff. But as far as like who I'm picking every single person on this team. So Jamar Chase, top three picks sometimes, top five, but never past that. Um, T. Higgins. I try to get T. Higgins in every draft. I mean, we went over this. I think that if you're on an offense that throws the ball like Cincinnati and is scoring 40 points a game potential, is
Yep.
better than having like DJ Moore, who's going to be a wide receiver one on a team that struggles to score 21 points, right? There's so many more opportunities for like a boom game, and then the floor I think is higher. You know, T Higgins could have two touchdowns, and Jamar Chase could have two touchdowns, and Joe Mixon can have a touchdown, and that's all like realistic in a game where DJ Moore, you're just hoping he gets a touchdown.
Yeah.
It's just, and I'm picking on the Bears just because like I think that they're going to be a decent offense this year. I just don't know that they have the tools to be like scary like Cincinnati. So you got Jamar Chase, T Higgins. I'm picking Tyler Boyd too. Like he's a great late wide receiver. I'd rather have Tyler Boyd than most of the starters, depending on where I got to draft them on Baltimore. Just because I could get 8 points a game from Tyler Boyd, in a pinch or whatever. And if either of those guys get injured, he's a great fill in to produce. Um, and then you got Joe Mixon, who's just kind of a steady running back too, typically that will have like boom games where he'll jump up and be like, hey, 3 touchdowns from Joe Mixon this week.
Hmm.
Um, I like that from my running backs, and then my favorite pick that like I don't have to reach for it. I can get him in almost every single league. Is Irv Smith. I was high on Irv Smith when he was on Minnesota, and he wasn't able to play both, get the starting position, and then they ended up trading for T.J. Hawkinson, which is better. He's better than Irv Smith, right? But Irv Smith is good, and this is his third year as a tight end, and it usually takes a few years for tight ends to like actually come and matter. And Hayden Hurst was a good, when healthy, tight end fantasy wise because he's on this offense that like he could get a touchdown here and there. And I think Irv Smith is better than that. He's younger, and yeah, I love this whole team.
So I have a couple things I just wanted to point out with Jamar Chase. I don't know, or so looking at the schedule they had last year and where he ranked as a wide receiver when he played,
Yep.
he did terrible against teams that were good at defense. And then the games that he was very good, like 29 fantasy point games, they're against like the Falcons, the Saints. But then when he plays like the Patriots or the Dolphins or the Jets, 41st, 28th, and he had high snap percentage. Like he played the whole game.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's a little scary to me that he's good against bad
Oh,
defenses, but
you got to think about it as a team. Okay, so they're playing against a good team. What did their team score against those good defenses, though?
I'll look back
Because
at that.
and you'd have to do a lot of research for this, but my assumption would be that okay, so he's the focal point of the defense, and it's a good defense, so they're capable of shutting down one person. But then who else on the team did well? Did T. Higgins do well that game, or did Joe Mixon do well, or Samaje P. Ryan? You know,
Well, their pass attempts go way down against good defenses. Looking back at the games, so like
yep,
when they play a bad offense, it's like 40 plus pass attempts, and then good defenses, it's under 40, like low 30s.
right, yep,
So I don't think they're wide. I can't. I'm not going to go through all the wide receivers that played in those
sure,
games, but just
yeah,
looking
yeah,
at that.
yeah. So let me see. I'm just pulling them up on their regular season. Game by game. So where do you have Cincinnati ranked in your own rankings?
I thought you ranked them, so I didn't rank
Yeah.
them in my top 10 because
Ah,
I was picking other teams, so we didn't have the
oh my
same
goodness.
teams. But
Yeah.
they would have been above, like I think they would have been where I put the Ravens. Like I would have bumped everybody down and put them there
Yeah.
because I do think they'll be good. It's just there is it is scary because they're injury prone team. Or Jamar
Right.
Chase has missed 5 games last year.
Right. So like in the Jets game, Tyler Boyd had 16 and a half points and Samaje Perine had 12 and a half, and Joe Burrow still had a good game. So the and then when they played Miami, T. Higgins had 18 points and Joe Mixon had 13 points. And so like even though Jamar Chase only had 8, which is still like when you look at his floor games versus like Diggs and Jefferson and those guys, uh he's still pretty great.
Yeah.
Hayden Hurst against Baltimore had a good game. Like they just have so many offensive pieces that the potential's always there for awesome game from a second string guy, and or your best guys can really really go off if they don't get covered well.
Yeah, so
So I love them, and look at their offensive line stuff. So they are ranked 17th this year, which isn't great, but they were a great offense last year. and they moved up 11 spots. They had an offensive line rank of 28 last year, and they did as well as they did.
Yeah, that is
Now
crazy.
it's so much better. Like I'm excited for what they can do. Health obviously always being your important factor. Um, okay, let's move on. What's your eighth
So I
pick?
have the. I think you said you had the Chargers, but I picked the Chargers as my
Yep,
eighth offense. That was my
yep.
next offense.
So Chargers,
Which last year they were good, but everyone was disappointed in Justin Herbert because he didn't do that well, and that was I think mostly just because his wide receivers were injured a lot of the year. But if they're healthy, I do think that they can be have at least 1 or 2 years of being good. Like I think Justin Herbert could do very well this year. But
yeah,
it is risky. Like Keenan Allen is 31, almost 2, but he's just been super
right.
consistent when he's on the field catching the ball.
Yep,
And then Mike Williams also is a really good wide receiver too, who also if he
yep.
plays the season could be could be good. But he missed some games
Right.
last year
Well,
too.
I mean, they also have Quentin Johnston, who's supposed to be a Mike Williams competition,
Yep.
which is exciting because Herbert's good at getting it to them. And then, yeah, so like I have them ranked sixth. Plus, their offensive line had a big jump as well, so they're projected to be the ninth best offensive line this year.
And if Austin
Um,
Eckler plays, he's a great
right,
pass catching running back.
right, yep. So I like that pick a lot. I obviously because I'm not that far behind you on where I place them.
Well,
Okay,
you're
so I've
ahead
already
of
talked
you're
about
ahead of
them.
me on those, I think. Right? What'd you put
Yeah,
Chargers?
yep.
Yeah.
I put him at sixth. So you got him at eighth. I got him at sixth. That's close enough. Like that's not
Yeah.
that big of a distance.
No.
So in my eighth spot, I have Cleveland.
Okay. I
Um,
have them ninth.
you have him ninth.
Yep.
Okay, nice. All right. So yeah. So let's talk about them then. If you've got him ninth, so they're your next pick. Okay, just updating my 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So they're gonna have the second best offensive line in football, which is exciting because you
Mm-hmm.
know that gives a quarterback who's got to get back to if he can get to like 75% of who he was, that'll be a great team. And so um, Amari Cooper, kind of your consistent, good top wide receiver guy. I like him. I don't draft him, but I like him.
Yeah.
Um, And then Elijah Moore. I was a big Elijah Moore guy. He just bad team last year, and so I'm excited to see what he can do with a better receiver. And he's not the focal point of the offense. And then Donovan Peoples Jones. He's kind of in that Tyler Boyd range of like he's a third wide receiver. I still pick him sometimes because he's got potential.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then Nick Chubb without Kareem Hunt. I just I don't see a path that he's not getting 20 carries a game with the second best offensive line in football. I mean, he doesn't catch the ball, but he's going to do great.
He's the running back that they want him to catch the ball more this year, right? Like that was the
Yeah,
so
right. They'd like
hopefully
him to
that
catch
works.
more than zero passes a game.
Yeah. Do a hundred
Yeah,
percent increase or something. But
right. The problem is Deshaun Watson doesn't really pass it to his running backs.
yeah.
Um, but if Deshaun, like I said, if Deshaun Watson plays like to a more competitive level that he's capable of, Amari Cooper and Eli Moore can both be sustained as top 10 wide receivers, similarly to DeAndre Hopkins and um, what's his name?
Oh,
Always
Marquise
injured,
Brown.
but
Oh no.
similar player. Um, wow,
Larry
totally drawing
Fitzgerald?
a blank.
You talking about
Nope. Um, gosh, this is
on
embarrassing
the
because
on the Cardinals?
Will Fuller. Will Fuller. Will Fuller was like Mike Williams essentially. Like,
Yeah,
please just stay healthy and you'll be a wide receiver, a top 10 wide receiver. And then he just could never do it. And then he did it 1 year, and that's because of the steroids. And now he doesn't play football anymore, apparently.
yeah.
Um, so
So that's
Eli Moore's not the same kind of player, but
yeah.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
had oh
you're my
man,
eight.
what was your other? You had another team. What was your other team that you picked before
What do
this?
you mean?
The seventh or eighth?
Cincinnati.
Yeah. So you pick. Maybe that's not the same comp, but just two quarterbacks that if they're good, their team's gonna be good, and if they're out or bad, then it's a bad offensive pick. Because the Browns last year were bad when even with
I
Deshaun
think,
Watson last year.
but I think Nick Chubb will be fine,
Yeah, that is true.
right? Because their offensive line more dictates that.
So Nick Chubb
So
will be good, but the other people
yeah,
rely on Deshaun Watson to be 75% of what he was before.
yep, yep.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so if they're their ninth, then I'm gonna move to my ninth.
Okay.
Um, which we already talked about them, so I'll be quick with them. I got San Francisco as ninth. Yeah, I know you have them number one overall
I thought
pick.
you had them higher before. Did you move them recently?
No,
Oh, okay.
um, no. They dropped 11 rankings in offensive line. That's always a concern for me, especially with a team that's that run heavy.
Yep.
Um, but they have McCaffrey, who I do think is, you know, again, health not being a consideration, he's your most trusted running back this year outside of Nick Chubb. I think Nick
Yeah.
Chubb is kind of your guaranteed, I'm going to be 20 points a game potentially consistently. I think McCaffrey can have those great boom games and still give you an awesome floor, right? Where Nick Chubb's not going to have as many of those boom games because he doesn't catch the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But, um, I even like Mitchell behind him as kind of like that Kareem Hunt come in and do certain plays when McCaffrey needs a breather and or in like the small injuries, like, tweaked an ankle, hurt a finger, that sort of thing. That's inevitable. And so I like Mitchell in those spaces. Um, George Kittle, I mean, what's crazy is they'll have, their offensive line will be whatever, but like Kittle adds to your offensive line as the best blocker, tight end blocker in football. And he's great at sneak out, catch a touchdown guy. And Brock Purdy loves him.
Yeah.
Um, and then you got Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. I mean, I don't have to convince you because you got them number one. But
Yeah.
my big problems with them are Brock Purdy's your starting quarterback, right? I don't know how great you can be when your quarterback is just below average, let's say, right? Especially now that teams are going to be prepared for him. I do think that you get this 4 to 6 game window of no one was expecting you to be quarterback. And so then they're like, I don't know what this guy's tendencies are. Like planning against him is hard to do. So I think that's going to be gone this year. Right. And then the offensive line dropping significantly in ranking this year is worrisome. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't
Yeah.
think Brock Purdy is capable of being a good quarterback? Like you just think he's a
No.
below average?
Yeah. I think he's like a Jacoby Brissett range of like, hey, like you can do the game plan and be a game manager, but like you're not going to be like if we're down by 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, we're losing that game, you
Yeah.
know, which is fine. Like I don't know that they're going to be in that position a lot.
No,
So
they were really good last year with their bad quarterback. Who do they have? Who did they have playing most of the year last year?
Garoppolo,
Yeah. Oh yeah. So he's a D. I don't know. I'd put him decent quarterback. I'd probably say Brock Purdy's pretty equivalent to him,
yeah, yeah, you're right.
and they did very
Not
well
great.
last year. So
Yep,
yeah.
yep. Okay, so who do you have? Who you got next? Who's
So
next on
I
your board?
have. We just talked about him, but I or in the beginning about missing not doing preseason, but I have the Cowboys as my 10th offense this year.
Okay.
I think Dak Prescott will play, and he's not gonna do drugs. And they have Tony Pollard as their running back, who is way better than Ezekiel Elliott last year, like per snap plays, even though he didn't play as much as he should have. Um, and then CeeDee Lamb's an incredible wide receiver, and if Michael Gallup stays healthy, he could be a good wide receiver because he's off his second year after his injury, ACL injury.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's
Right.
a statistically people come back 2 years and they're way better than they were that first year off of it. And he didn't get hurt
Yeah.
last year, right? He just played the whole time. Just was bad.
Yeah.
So hopefully he's better this year. That statistically is what happens is the year two is when they get better.
Yep.
So he'll have two good wide receivers, have a good running back, and tight end. I don't know. Oh, who do they have tight end? Because I'm looking at last year's. They don't have Dalton Schultz this year, right?
Oh, it's Jake Ferguson, who's a rookie.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, which usually you stay away from rookies, but like even I don't think he's a bad pick if you're like me. Like I'm a running back and tight end hater, right? In drafts, I get accused of that a lot. Where I think that you can get. I don't mind playing waivers with the tight end and running backs through the season. Like I like to have a hero RB, and then I'll take like backups or second guys that I know will get, like kind of how Kareem Hunt was for a while, or when you have like a split backfield between, uh, AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, like those sort of guys I'm okay with, just because there's so many injuries at the running back position, and if it's a good running team, the backup is going to be at 80% of what the starter was typically in production. So I don't mind it typically to just play around with that. Tight end's the same boat. I just anticipate like, please get me 6 points. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I don't, especially this year. Last year I could see Kelsey having the value of being the top pick, first round pick. But this year I'm afraid of it. He's too old. He's
Yeah.
getting way too old.
That's what
You know,
people were afraid of last year too. I mean, he still
I
went
know,
first round
right?
last year. Yeah. He's gonna
Yep.
fall off
So it's got to
eventually.
happen.
Yeah.
Got to happen. So like, yeah. So then you're looking at like, okay, if I'm not picking Kelsey or Mark Andrews, then I just want a starting tight end that's going to get passes, like on a passing team,
Yeah.
and that's
The
that's
Cowboys.
Ferguson.
Yep.
That's why I like our Smith. You know, so yeah, Ferguson is there, and if Zeke doesn't re-sign with them, then I like Tony Pollard, and then Deuce Vaughn is their backup, and he's a rookie that they drafted this year.
Yep.
He might have value. Their offensive line is great. I think
Yeah.
they're
They
yeah they're
moved up.
they're ranked sixth.
They moved up 6 this off season.
Right, right, which is great.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Softest Fantasy Football Show. I broke this up into 2 parts because it was around 30 minutes was the end of my ranking the Cowboys, and then the next episode will pick up with Corbin's 10th pick, and then some sleeper picks that we think will be good offenses, but they don't look good on paper. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.